Husband, father, entrepreneur, realtor, a long list of other titles and descriptions, and landlord. Welcome to the And Landlord Podcast with me, Jonathan Taylor Smith, also known as JT, following a roadmap to financial freedom through residential rental real estate. Welcome to the And Landlord Podcast, and Lord Podcast. Here you'll learn how adding and landlord to the litany of titles and descriptions that speak to who you are and what you do may be the greatest opportunity to achieve financial freedom, where someone else pays the bills, the tenant, and someone else provides 80% or more of the money, the bank, and where you get 100% of the cash flow, all the appreciation, and the tax benefits on an asset insured against losses that cannot be worth zero short of alien invasion or the zombie apocalypse, ultimately resulting in a free house that will kick out cash flow for the rest of your life and beyond. You try getting any of that from the stock market or your 401k. So be all that you are and landlord. Let's do it. This is it. The very first episode of the And Landlord Podcast. I am JT Smith, and the And Landlord Podcast is all about achieving financial freedom through residential rental real estate. In other words, being a landlord. Yes, I know. You don't have to tell me. You don't want troubles with tenants and toilets and termites and rent not being paid on time. You don't want those headaches. We've all heard landlord horror stories where the tenant was a nightmare and completely trashed the property. Would you believe me, however, if I told you, because I am telling you, the likelihood of those types of tenant troubles can be significantly reduced, if not completely eliminated, by having policies and procedures and systems in place that allow you to be a professional landlord. In other words, to run it as a business. So this podcast will be about professional landlordology, so to speak. I'll be releasing weekly episodes, and occasionally I may release 2 during the same week. Many episodes will be me solo, speaking on a topic of interest, but as often as possible, I'll bring in a guest to interview so that we can learn from their successes and failures and even hear their landlord horror story. I think those are important to hear so that we can disarm them with best practices on how to avoid horror story situations going forward. It's like if you're in a horror movie, you don't say, "I'll be right back," and go outside to investigate a noise. You're going to have a bad day. Likewise, as a landlord, there are certain things that you need to just avoid doing, or it will not work out well for you. Hearing the details of someone else's nightmare situation, along with firsthand information as to how it could have been prevented, could literally save you thousands of dollars and months of headaches. But even that has to be kept in its proper place, because prior to me getting into real estate, I would tell people that I wanted to buy rental property, that I wanted to be a landlord. And inevitably, they would vomit their landlord horror story all over me. As a result, for years, I let those stories and the fears they created in me keep me from taking action. And that easily delayed my landlord journey by a decade. Don't let fears and doubts keep you out of what I feel is the most amazing opportunity to achieve financial freedom that exists for the average person today. I laid out many of the benefits of residential rental real estate in the intro. And by the way, sorry about that long intro. I will shorten that before the next episode. But the benefits go beyond even those I've already mentioned. So what is financial freedom? I count it as a scenario where you have income from your passive investments that exceeds your monthly expenses. So let's say you require $5,000 a month to pay all of your bills and live the lifestyle that you desire. And I don't mean that you're taking European vacations every year and you're driving a Ferrari. Just your normal lifestyle that is satisfying for you on a day-to-day basis. If you needed, for example, $5,000 a month to achieve that lifestyle, but you had $5,000 a month or more coming in from your rental properties or other passive investments, then I would count you among those who are financially free. So that's the goal. But of course, you're not going to get there with just one property. That's why you need to make it a systematized business where you have multiple properties that are all working towards your monthly cash flow needs. In fact, that makes it even more secure for you, because if you only have one property and it goes vacant, well, now you have a 100% vacancy and you're coming out of your pocket to pay that mortgage. But if you have 10 properties and one of them goes vacant, well, that's only a 10% vacancy, and it should certainly be the case that those other 9 properties are generating enough cash flow to cover the mortgage and other expenses for the one vacant property until you can get it re-rented. So the method to the madness is over time to create a portfolio of cash flow positive rental property with great long-term tenants who pay their rent on time and create little to no distraction in your life, ultimately resulting in fully paid for properties that were essentially free to you that will continue to kick out cash flow to meet all of your financial needs for the rest of your life while leaving a legacy for your family. So if you're already on that journey, the goal of the And Landlord Podcast is to help you get there faster and with fewer bumps and bruises along the way. And if you haven't started that journey yet, I want to inspire you to do so. Get started. Buy investment property. It's the greatest thing ever. And we are living in an amazing time. So don't let the opportunities that are all around you go to waste. So a little bit about me. Why should you listen to me? Why should you care what I think or what I have to say? Well, the tagline of the show, and from where the name originates, is husband, father, entrepreneur, realtor, and landlord. These and many other titles and descriptions speak to who I am and what I do. So in part, this show is about me, but I also want it to be about you and all of the titles and descriptions that speak to who you are and what you do. And I want to help you add and landlord to that list. And I believe that I'm qualified to do so. So as it is mentioned in the description, I'm a husband. I've been married to a beautiful woman for almost 19 years now, and no disrespect to your spouse, but I have the best wife ever. I'm also a father. I have an 11-year-old son, and again, no disrespect to your children, but my son is amazing. I love my family. I'm also an entrepreneur, meaning I own multiple businesses such that I have been self-employed since 2002. So I can give you insight into managing people, putting systems and processes in place, and leveraging automation to get more done in less time with less effort. I'll tell you more about my businesses in future episodes, but one of them is a technology business, web hosting and IT consulting. So I can give you insight into anything and everything related to utilizing the internet to be more productive. And an aspect of that business is search engine optimization and search engine and social media marketing. So I can guide you in growing your business online and using those resources to find deals, to find properties to buy, to make into rentals, to find money to buy those properties, to find team members, to build a team of professionals that are there to support your needs and to help you grow your rental property portfolio to one that is large enough and generates sufficient cash flow to make you financially free. And so, as also mentioned in the title, I'm a realtor. After I bought my second property, I went and got my real estate license because I realized that it would help me to be a better investor. And so, in line with my entrepreneurial mindset, I started my own real estate agency. And I'll tell you more about that in later episodes. So I think my unique combination of over 2 decades of business experience, I started my first business in 1996, along with also being a licensed realtor, along with having a rental portfolio of my own properties that I manage myself and having a property management firm that allows me to manage properties on behalf of others, have all brought me to a place where starting this podcast is the perfect thing for me to do because I've come to the understanding that you learn most and best by teaching others. And so that's what I want to do. I hope I will be able to provide you with excellent content, and in the process of preparing and presenting that content to you, I will only learn more myself. So that's about it for this inaugural episode. This is number 1, and it was just a brief introduction to me and to the purpose of the podcast. I'll go into more details about myself and my businesses and tell some of my specific stories in coming episodes as it relates to things that will help you become and succeed as a landlord. Also, none of us are born knowing any of this stuff. I myself learned it from others. And so as we move forward, I will point out certain online tools and resources that I found particularly useful. Books that I've read that I thought in some way transformative. And just know that anytime I say read, I probably mean listen to. I love Audible. And one book in particular that I'll cite for you is the one that over the prior 20 years or so is responsible for most investors getting involved in real estate, and that is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So in a coming episode, I'll tell you the story of how I was on a cruise ship reading that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that was one that I actually was reading in electronic format in that case. And despite the fact that I was with great friends having a great time, I couldn't wait for that cruise to be over so that I could get back home and start looking for my first property. In addition to books and various online resources, I also consume podcasts myself almost daily. And so when I have some information to relate that came from a particular show, I'll give that show credit for being the source of that information. Well, that's enough for now. I just wanted this initial episode to be an introduction to me, to the podcast, and what is to come. So I'm extremely excited about this, the Landlord Podcast. I could not be more excited. And I want this to be a two-way communication. Give me your feedback. Let me know how I'm doing, how I can improve, what information you would like presented, topics you are interested in hearing discussed. Because ideally, as we move forward, this show will become far less about me and more about you and the guest that I bring on to interview. New episodes will be released on Tuesdays of each week. And on the next episode, I'll tell my story of how I became a landlord, continuing from being on that cruise ship reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Thank you for listening to the Landlord Podcast with me, Jonathan Taylor Smith, by Blue Chariot Media, following a roadmap to financial freedom through residential rental real estate. You can find the podcast website and blog at landlord.com. The main company site is bluechariot.com. If you've received any value from this podcast, help me, please, to make it available to others, and make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing and posting your 5-star rating, plus share it on social media. I welcome your comments on the blog. And if you'd like to share your landlord horror story or have a comment or suggestion for the show, call 844-USA-BLUE and enter extension 263, which spells "and" on your keypad, as in "and landlord," and leave a message. It may be used on a coming show. Thank you. Be all that you are. And Landlord. Nothing on the preceding show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for personal advice. The comments and opinions of any guest are their own. Information is not guaranteed. Any investment may have potential for both profit and loss. The host is speaking solely on behalf of Blue Chariot Media, LLC.